Hello guys, Fru here. Welcome to the presentation today. In today's presentation, we're going to look at test data management on Snowflake. It's going to be a really exciting presentation. We're going to cover a lot of concepts as we go through this. So as always, I'm going to leave some timestamps to specific concepts. So if you want to skip around and focus on specific areas, you can certainly do that. So test data management is a really unique concept that a lot of teams, especially when thinking about data ops or very agile data pipelines, sooner or later you're going to run across this concept of test data management, or another term for it might be just refreshing your lower environment so that teams can develop in a lower environment, in your dev environment, your test environment, your stage, your QA, so that they can develop in those environments completely isolated from production. So that's going to be the presentation for today. If you're new to Snowflake, Snowflake is a modern data warehouse solution for massive amounts of data that has separated compute from storage. It has a multi-cluster warehouse, and it's literally disrupted the way organizations store and process data at scale. And so a lot of teams are using Snowflake for their analytical workloads, for their data warehouse, data science, and many other use cases. And as you dive in deeper, beyond just the fact that you can run queries, you're going to start thinking about how you set up your environments separated for doing development in an agile fashion. So we're going to look at certain specific areas, starting with some concepts around Xerocopy Clones, which allows you to make a copy of a lower environment without moving data. So you're literally getting terabytes or petabytes of data, refreshing your lower environments where the teams can work in securely, again, without moving data. Really powerful. There is a whole idea of synthetic data generation, which is going to be a key aspect of the presentation. And then we're also going to look at some other unique concepts like sampling, where you want to sample data in production and then maybe push that to your lower environment to maybe obfuscate the data, or just get a good representation of the data for your analytics without having to look at the entire data set. And then as we go through this, all of this, we're going to do discussions as we go. Data ops is really the next frontier for data. People want pipelines, they want secure environments. And so to get a true data ops, you have to have test data management. You have to have a way of refreshing your lower environment very quickly, very efficiently, without compromising your data in production. Just to give you an idea, early on in my career, I once supported a team as an architect where we literally went out and bought a third-party tool that would just run every month, copy production data into dev, so the development teams can do their work. Just imagine that every month, right? Once a month, this thing runs. Think about the latency for you having to wait till month end just to get the data you need to do development in your lower environments. It's just not acceptable in today's world of increased acceleration, rapid innovation, and speed to value that teams want. You should be able to refresh your environment on demand and get the data so the development teams can proceed. So there is a lot of pain from the trenches with this whole concept. And if this is something that you've suffered with, Snowflake has literally given you a panacea for that, a solution that should be really, really appealing. Now, that said, this presentation is going to build heavily on this blog post available on the Snowflake website by Robert Furman. I'll highly encourage you to go out and read it. It's a thorough post, and we're going to build from what he did and use a lot of the concept in our presentation today. A link to this will be in the description below. If not, just go ahead, search for Robert. He's has some really great content on the Snowflake website you want to check out. So with that said, we're going to dive in and really kick things off. Assuming you have a Snowflake environment and you're thinking about creating a lower environment so your teams can securely do their work, the very first thing we're going to think about here is using the whole idea of a Xerocopy clone or Xerocopy clones. If you're not familiar with that, check out some other videos I might have made about Xerocopy clones. You will get a really good idea about what that is. So Xerocopy clones allow you to basically do what it says, copy a clone without without actually duplicating the data. So the data set that we have in here is going to be this sample Snowflake sample data set that comes with every account. So assuming this is the end of the month or the beginning of the sprint, or we need to close in the books and I need a copy of this data so my development teams can have a secure database in a lower environment where they can do the development with data that's very representational of this. Now, this is a lot of data. So if you look at this, we're talking about across the different schemas, we're talking about millions and millions of records. Here, this is 6 million rows. You can see that here. This is about 200,000, 5, 10, just quite a bit, right? And I want to get this into my lower environment so that the teams can do the development. Moving that data, given that data has gravity, is just going to take a very long time. And I mean, we can do it, but I would be very, very cautious about just, moving and duplicating data. So Snowflake allows us to clone any database that we have. And your database could have a lot of records. So for example, this is 6 million records, 800,000, lots and lots of records. I want all of this available in my lower environment without making a copy. Now, this is a share, so I'm not going to clone a share. You cannot do that technically, but you can create any local database that you have. So the ones without the arrow in your environment. So what I'm going to do here is with my demo DB, I'll go ahead and clone all of this, right? So think about the power of being able to instantly give your team access to production-like data in a secure environment that they can do the development in seconds, right? Instead of waiting months, you can do this in seconds. So here, the first query is going to create database demo clone, and it's going to clone. So this is the command that allows us to do the Xerocopy clone. And here I'm cloning the DB, and my context is all set correctly. So if I go ahead and run this, bear with me, I'm going to go ahead and run that. Oh, I believe the object already exists. I probably cloned it already. So let's refresh that. And that's my clone. And this clone is exact copy of what we have in production, but it's completely isolated. This is its own database, and the development team can work with that. Don't believe me? Let's go ahead and create it as demo clone dev. And voila, literally seconds, we're making an entire copy of this database. And if I do a refresh, now I can create as many clones as I want. And my development team have an environment in here with test data, if so we call it, that looks like production, and they can go in and do the development. So this was some work I did previously. And what we did here was brought some IoT data, and the development team can go in here. They make updates, they make deletes, they run machine learning model. This is a complete secure environment, and it never affects production, even though it's a clone. So this is a really powerful first step if you're thinking about creating a lower environment for your development teams. And you can create databases. You can also create schemas as well. So if I want to zero in here, instead of creating a database, let's say I wanted to pick out a particular schema, and I'm going to go ahead, look for a schema, my public schema. So I'm going to do a demo clone that, and I'm going to specify there's that public, of course. So we're going to clone the public schema. And then let's give it a name, dev s, right? And if we go ahead and we run this, if we go ahead and run this, let's the name, we don't need to fully qualify that. Let's go ahead, run that. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new schema for us. And now I'm in demo dev. So if I go into demo dev and I do a refresh of this, it takes a few seconds. Now you see that schema, and it's a copy of my production data. So you can clone entire databases. You can clone specific schema. You can clone specific tables, specific views, and the sky literally is the limit. And you have that instantly. Think about it. Instantly having access to production-like data in a secure environment for the teams to develop. So this is step number one. And if you want to go ahead and see what we just did, you can run a query here. Like let's select just to see the DDL that we're working with here. So we're going to get DDL, and just bear with me to type slowly. And that statement would basically give us a schema, and we can check out what we just cloned. So I think I worked with this. That was a clone. Let's go ahead and check the DDL for that schema. So you can see specifically that that was something that we just did. So let's go ahead, check that out. You can see the DDL. It's a clone of production, and all the schema from production is what we have downloaded in there. Let me copy that, bring it in here, so you can see how easy this all is. How easy this is all, right? This is what we have now in my Lua environment. And from a test data management perspective, the team can go in and create these clones, as many as they want, and they have an environment very secure, separated from production, and they can do the development in an agile fashion. Now, cloning is a great step. Of course, just a little bit of a caveat before we go off this topic. When you clone, you might say, okay, now I'm exposing my production data to my lower environments. There are a lot of things you can do in there to make sure that that's not a problem. So you can use things like dynamic data masking. You can obfuscate the data. You can scramble the data a little bit so that what makes it in dev environment is not representative of your production environment. And I can cover that in a separate video. Let me know in the comment section below if that's a question you have, and I'll make a specific topic around dynamic data masking, so you can apply that to your clone data. So if there's sensitive data in there, it doesn't show up in your lower environments. Now, next piece here that we're going to look at is number 2, synthetic data generation. It's one thing to clone and have a copy of the data. It's another thing to where you don't necessarily want to clone, but you want to have some data sets to work with and just do a quick development. So let me just zoom in here to get a little bit more real estate. You can do that. Okay, you can do that within Snowflake very, very easily. I think ease of use is a big theme here that we're going to see. And this is where the article that Robert wrote, which is very brilliant, that every person on Snowflake should probably read this, because I think it's going to be valuable for you. He did talk about how you do this in Python, but doing it in Snowflake just makes it easy. This is literally ABC easy, all right? If you can write a select statement, you can get hundreds, thousands, or millions of data set from Snowflake that you can use in your analysis. So that said, let's go back into our worksheet here. The very first thing that we can see with generating sample data, if we don't want to go ahead and clone from a different environment. So I'm going to maintain my context in here. I'm still in my clone dev. I'm just going to go ahead, put the very first one, which is select. We're just going to get 1, and we're going to do that 10 times, right? If you want to do it 100 times, you can go ahead and do it 100 times. And so we've got 1 100 times. Not very useful. I don't think there's any analytical value here. So I think we can do something better than just selecting 1. Okay, so what about we select random number generator? So with this, we're going to generate some random number, and we're going to call it column 1, maybe call it age, and we're going to generate 100 records of that, just so that we get some good size. All right, think about the power of Snowflake, the agility, giving you random numbers. All right, 100 records, and you can use this to quickly power a database that your team can use for the analysis. Well, I don't think people are going to be leaving minus numbers. You can throw in absolute around there to get positive number and making an integer in a particular range. And now you get something that looks like an age, because I don't think you're going to fool anyone thinking that this is an age. So something to be aware of when generating these numbers, right? And not just one column. We can do it for multiple columns. So we're going to generate random column 1, random column 2, and we're going to generate 10 records for each. And now we've got something in here. Insert that into a table, and you can have this data set that folks can work with. So really, really useful. Now, let's say you want to get a little bit more creative, and you want some uniformity around the data that we generate, so it's not just all over the place. You can go ahead and use this function uniform. And here we're going to generate just numbers between 1 and, let's make it 10. Let's start with that. And we generate 100 records. All right. So you can see now we're generating some uniform records between 1 and 10. And let's do 1 and 100, just so we get some more of range in there. And so we've got a number generated between 1 and 100. So by the way, this is 1 and 100 inclusive. So that's why you see 100 showing up in here. This might be age, right, that you're generating. It might be customer ID. It might be the probability machine is going to fail, and you can generate this and use it as a column in your data set. Now, next piece here, we can even get this more sophisticated, where we're not just generating a random number, but we make it a little bit uniform, right? Especially if you're doing data science and we're generating a string, we're trying to make it a little bit uniform. You can use this rand string. So instead of just a number, we're going to make it uniform between 3 characters and 10 characters. So you can see if I just wanted between 3 and 3, I believe it's going to be inclusive. So it's just going to give us 3 strings. If you wanted, say, something that looks like a US zip code, well, US zip code is not a string. So, but it gives us 5 digits. You get the point. But it's a little bit uniform. So again, you can generate as many as you want. Tired of generating 10? Let's generate 10,000. And voila, boom, Snowflake goes to work. And you've got all your data. 10,000 too small, let's generate 1,000,000. All right, it's pulling my warehouse through its paces. And now you've got the scale, you've got the power, you've got the simplicity. You don't have to worry about Python code doing all of this. Snowflake is making it really easy for you. Now, next one here that we can generate, we can do strings. We've seen we can do a lot of things, right? And if you really wanted to bring this and put it all together, let's go ahead, bring all of those scripts that we've kind of looked at, put it together, generating an email. Well, I might do a little bit more work in here, maybe wrap it around like a function in Snowflake to give me what looks like an email. But just for the sake of it, I think you can see how easy this is. Let's just select all of this. And now we've got sample data set, and we're generating, guess what? 100 million records. Let's say that again, 100 million. Well, that's even a billion, right? I'm even missing my zeros here. That's how easy it is. You can forget a zero when the platform is that easy. We're generating 1 billion records at scale. I'm doing it with an extra small warehouse. If I really wanted to, I can, turn on the horsepower and do that with a larger warehouse. Where on earth can you go to get 1 billion records, sample data that you can use in your warehouse to do analysis that quick? Now, I know this is taking a little bit of a longer time here because I'm using an extra small. You're going to watch me turn this, the power horses here with the agility of Snowflake to resize the warehouse. Let's go ahead and do a resize actually while this is running. Let me do this into a 6XL. I'm not going to keep that for too long in the 6XL, and you see 1 billion records showing up in there. And while this is running, what I'm going to do with that billion records when it shows up is I'm going to go ahead and put that into a table, and we're going to call this table tech with through billion table, right? And my team can go against it. I think this is just taking a little bit longer. Let's kill that. We're doing 1 billion records. Let's use it with a 6XL. And we've done that just in seconds. In case you missed it, I went from extra small and I went to 6. That is 6 times well, it's not even 6 times. That is 16 times the capability for what the one warehouse would do, right? So we're looking at a 512 node cluster coming into this, and we did that in a second. So let's go back and now let's run this. I would imagine that the horsepower here will make this go even faster. Tremendous parallelization, and it's going to create a table for us called tech with through 1 billion table. Is going to load that data, and now my development team, instead of waiting months and weeks or quarters for them to have an environment, they've got 1 billion records at their fingertips for them to work with. So pretty powerful. This takes a few seconds here. I'm going to pause the video and then come back. I think let's just hang on while this runs. All right, so it took a little over 11 minutes, but we've got 1 billion records available for us to use in our analysis. And this is not 1 billion of a clone data. This is 1 billion of new data. And before I forget, let me resize this down to the bare minimum, just like that, literally in seconds. I brought in the dump truck. We've done a heavy lifting, and in an instant, I've resized that back into a lower environment, that the team can work with. This is the power of having the scalability, the power of a platform like Snowflake for you to create your lower environment. So let's go back in here. And I believe the context we used was dev. So refresh that. Schema is the clone dev s, and I believe this is a schema, and we should see a table in here with, there you have it, 1 billion. I can't quite get to it, but you can see the rows to your right side. 1 billion. That's 1 billion records like that. 40 gigabytes, literally in under 11 minutes. Try doing this in production. Try copying your production data down, or generating this amount of data in SQL without doing Python or something exotic. Just try doing it and see if you can do it in 11 minutes. Guys, this is literally game changing. This is what brings speed to development teams, and it's a competitive advantage if your team can do this and another team cannot do it. You stay in the game and the other team is out of business. So this is really powerful. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at here on our list that we've seen with generating synthetic data is another concept of sampling. So we can sample data sets and use that for analysis. So let's go back in this that we just generated. I'm going to select, let's select the top 10 records from this. The top 10 as an example, and we have that available for us. All right, so this is what we generated in the billion table. But if we're trying to do some analysis, maybe we don't want to work with the entire data set, right? And this is where sampling comes into play. You can come to the table, instead of getting just the top 10 records, let's go ahead and replace that with a unique function in here, which is going to sample 10 of those records for us. I just like to clean things up so we have some more real estate. So we're going to get just a 10 sample. So now I'm not getting the top 10, I'm getting a sample of that data, right? And for many different reasons, you might want to sample your data set for analysis or just to get a good representation of it. And I'm going to sample 10%, or the data set will all have 10% probability of showing up. So this might take a few seconds to run. Let's let it do its thing, and then we're going to come back. While this is running, maybe this is a lot of records. Let's actually change this. I'm going to go, instead of going with that, let me go with my IoT data that I know for sure exists. So let's take a look at that, and let's do a sample here. Let's do a sample of 10, just so that we can blow through this like butter cutting through, like a hot knife cutting through butter, right? This is how easy Snowflake can do it for us. So we're sampling records that have a 10% probability of showing up. So you have this ability to do something like this. If you're gonna then put this into a lower environment, you certainly can do that. Now, there's another aspect to sampling where you can use the Burnley sampling, and it's going to give you a 20, like for example, what we're seeing here is a 20.3 probability of being included in a sample. So every record has that probability of being included in a sample. And this is what our result looks like. So we're not getting everything from the table, but we're getting a sample of it. And now you can mask this, obfuscate this, and then send that to your lower environment. So instead of cloning everything, depending on your use case, you may want to do a representational sample as such. Now, and we can keep going on and on, right? There is another sample that we can do. This is called a table sample, and we're gonna get in this case 75 records coming through, because that's all we have in here. Let's do a table sample of 10, because I know that's smaller than what we have. So we're gonna get a representational sample of that coming through, and each time you get a different number of records, and you can use that for your analysis downstream. So sampling, you can use this and do joins if you wanted to do the sample of it and actually do some seeding around it. Those are capabilities that you can certainly do as well. So I'm going to sample seed it with 3, just to kind of make it more unique for the records that are coming back, and you've got the ability to do that. And if I wanted to sample instead of percentages and return, say, 10 rows per se, you've got the ability to do that as well with sample, returning 10 rows. So guys, there you have it. Lots and lots of options available for us. Let's go back and bring this home. Snowflake test data management is a really important concept that teams do struggle with, spending weeks, months, or quarters trying to get a lower environments. And some teams don't even do it and end up developing in production, which is the even worst. It's a nightmare scenario. So you can avoid that by using some really unique concepts and capabilities within Snowflake. Xerocopy clones, being able to copy data, your entire production data, without making a copy of it, almost defying physics. That's what the Xerocopy clone is. Synthetic data generation. You can generate synthetic data, sample data, just using some simple functions in Snowflake without having to learn Python, Java, Scala, or some exotic modules. Right within Snowflake, your team can do that and move at breakneck speed. Sampling is another option available. You can use sampling of your production data, bring that into your lower environment, and the teams can use that for developing. And then wrapping all of this up, the moment you create a lower environment, you can put in the necessary security you need on top for PHI, PI types of data sets, using dynamic data masking, column masking, row level masking, to make sure the data is secure and your team can work on it securely. There are teams that literally can clone production at the beginning of the sprint, have a lower environment, they iterate through the development. As soon as the 2 weeks is over, sprint closes, retrospective is done, they reclone the environment, they literally bring it down, clone a new one, and off they go, right? That's the kind of speed you get with test data management within Snowflake. So guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. If you like this video, please make sure you like it. This has been Fru. You have been awesome. I will see you in our next presentation.